I think we're going to make a start. Friends and colleagues, we're really delighted that you could join us for this event to launch ARK's 25th anniversary year. I'd like to thank Belfast City Hall for the use of such beautiful surroundings. Unfortunately, I have an apology to make on behalf of the Lord Mayor, who, because of illness, can't be with us today, but we wish him a speedy recovery. So my name's Anne-Marie Gray, and I'm co-director of ARK, along with my colleague here, Paula Devine from Queen's University. Before we start, I just need to make some housekeeping arrangements before I forget. So for guests not familiar with the City Hall, the main toilets are located on the ground floor at the foot of the east staircase. There are accessible toilets on the first floor just off this rotunda area. There's no planned testing of the alarm system today, so in the event of any emergency or the sounding of the fire alarm, please follow the directions of the City Hall staff and the function organisers. Please leave the building immediately by the nearest route following the emergency exit signs, and please do not use the lifts. Everyone should proceed to the assembly point at the east side of the building at the Titanic Memorial Garden. And please do not leave the site until all guests have been accounted for, and do not attempt to re-enter until directed by the City Hall security staff. So I think that is everything. As most of you know, ARK is a joint and interdisciplinary initiative across the School of Applied Social and Policy Sciences at Ulster University and the School of Social Sciences, Education and Social Work at Queen's University. Established in 2000, our main aim and purpose remains to undertake high-quality research and make this accessible to the widest possible audience. Just to get things going, Paula and I are briefly going to look at how ARK's focus has developed over the past 25 years and some of the things that we're going to be thinking about going forward. So just to start off that presentation, I'm going to hand over to Paula.
Okay, thank you very much, Anne-Marie, and thank you everybody for being here, our friends, our colleagues and our funders. And I think some or most of you fall into all three categories, because when you've been working on something for 25 years, you really get to know people really well, and we really appreciate your support over that time and also for being here today. But 25 years, great achievement, but it does make me feel very, very old. So, when we're thinking about what we're going to talk about today, we have this nice, lovely graphic that our colleague Erin designed, which is looking at our journey over the last 25 years and highlighting some of the achievements that we've got there. But when Anne-Marie and I looked at it the other day, and we thought, does that look like a game of snakes and ladders? And I thought, you know, over the years we've had lots of ladders, but we've certainly had quite a lot of snakes as well. But the good news is that we reached the top. So that's the main thing. We also thought, does it look like a very long and winding road? But again, it's about the journey or the destination. I'm not sure which it is, but anyway, we're here after a quarter of a century. And it wouldn't be a birthday or an anniversary celebration if somebody hadn't dug out a really embarrassing photograph of everybody. So this is us. This is the only one I could find, and this is us in 2003. And there's a lot of people in this room probably cringing right now, including myself. Anyway, that was us at a launch event. And I suppose in that photograph there, I really want to pay tribute to Professor Elizabeth Meehan, who's standing in the front of that photograph, who was a true supporter and friend to ARK over the years, both to us as individuals and also to ARK as a team when we were part of the Institute of Governance in Queen's all those years ago. And moving quickly on, there's us in 2024. So that's some of the ARK team, not all of us, but taken at one of our review days last year. And again, what's interesting is that over 25 years, a lot of the team are still here. And it's that commitment and longevity that really is an essential part of the ARK team. but of course we're really delighted to welcome new people in and out of the team over the years as well. And to say that's, I'm going to click away from that now because we don't always like to have photographs. So, thinking about where ARK began, I say this is a real blast from the past year. This is our first logo. As you can see, we very much took inspiration from Noah's Ark, and when we began in 2000. As Anne-Marie said, ARK is a joint initiative across Queen's and UU. And it began in 2000 when it brought together two existing resources. So we had the Northern Ireland Life and Time Survey, which began in 1998, and CAIN, which is the conflict archive on the internet, which had begun in 1996. And the rationale for that is to bring together these resources to provide a central hub that could provide high quality, robust evidence for the newly established devolved government in Northern Ireland, and also to develop the capacity for critical and policy debate within all sectors in Northern Ireland. And central to this was the vision of Gillian Robinson and Lisanne Dowds, who were instrumental in having that initial idea and bringing it to fruition. And I know Lisanne's in the room, and I'm not going to embarrass her for pointing her out. And unfortunately, Gillian can't be here today, but we hope that she'll be at some of our events in the future. Now, at the time, ARK was almost a pioneer. Words like open access and impact, which we take for granted within academia at the moment, actually were very unusual in 2000, but that was really key to ARK's work, was having the information and getting it out there to the people who needed it, especially within a time where we thought that Northern Ireland was going to have a devolved administration that would last into the future. We know that didn't necessarily work out that way, but we have this information source that is accessible to all. We did this without any core funding, except for one large ESRC grant between 2006 and 2011. The lack of core funding, in a way, has meant that ARK is a trusted and independent source of information, but it does require a lot of work and time on our part in getting the funding to keep us moving forward. And that's why we're delighted that some of our funders can be here today, and those are the people who trusted us and had confidence in us to provide the information that Northern Ireland needs. So, what exactly do we do? Well, ARK, as first envisaged and still is today, acts as a bridge between different sectors in Northern Ireland, whether that's academia or government or NGOs. And it's also about building research capacity as well, and policy capacity. So we see ourselves as a research, a policy and an impact centre. We carry out research on key policy issues. We make the information accessible on our website and in other dissemination activities. We support civic society with the research and evidence that it needs to build social renewal and healthy communities. And for example, we're here in Belfast City Hall. We know that Belfast City Council is using some of its data in terms of its community planning. We know that our government and policy colleagues are using the ARK data to inform and develop, monitor and evaluate their policy. But we also want the ARK data and information and infrastructure to be used to challenge policy as well, whether that's by academia, by NGOs or by others. Of course, working in a policy environment in Northern Ireland does have some challenges. I suppose the structures of Northern Ireland, as well as the in-out suspensions of devolution as well. So, but evidence of the ARK evidence can provide that trusted information that people can use within that challenging environment. But ARK isn't a think tank. We may have some of the characteristics of a think tank, but we're not. Our focus is on evidence-based academic information and making that accessible. So how exactly do we do it? Well, this is just a brief run-through of some of our activities. So some of you may know us for our 3 annual public attitude surveys, but we also have a critical policy unit that looks at some of the most challenging issues that are facing our society and policy today. And we have programmes of work that focus on particular groups across their life course. So we have a programme of work looking at ageing and also in children and young people, and a wide range of public engagement activities. But we also undertake some externally funded one-off projects as well, which are reactive to the needs within society. And this is just an example of some of these projects. So we undertook the peace monitoring reports, a project on hidden homelessness, project on men's health, one on volunteering, one on gender budgeting, and one on reproductive rights. And those are all standalone projects, but actually when you think about it, all of those issues are interdependent in society today. And that's what the expertise and knowledge that ARK can bring, is highlighting how all of those are linked together. And also at the bottom of the screen is another of our visual puns in the one of our old logos, where we talk about being an archive, and we have a little honeycomb as well. So, talking of nostalgia, here we have a flag that three of the ARK team, myself, Dirk Schubats and Bob Miller, put together about 15, 20 years ago. And the whole idea of that flag was to show that there are two sides to every story, and that ARK is a central broker in the middle. The other message in that story, in this flag, is that Dirk, Bob and I should never give up our day job, because I don't think we're going to have a career in flag making or crafts any day soon. Anyway, it was good fun putting it together. But it made us think about how would you represent ARK visually. So ARK, in order to show those stories, ARK engages with a wide range of people. So whether that's school children, teachers, researchers, lecturers, students, NGOs, policymakers, the media, anybody or everybody who's interested in Northern Ireland society and politics. And it's not just our data and our information. Some of our processes, our questionnaires and our ways of doing things have actually been used by researchers right across the world. Now, I'm involved day to day on the ARK survey, so it's something that I know best. And we have 3 surveys. Began 1998 is the Northern Ireland Life and Time Survey. In 2003 we began the Young Life and Time Survey of 16-year-olds. And in 2008 we began the Kids Life and Time Survey of 10 and 11-year-olds. And I know a lot of you in the room have been involved in some way in designing, funding or disseminating the information from those surveys. The whole idea behind them is that they're open access sources of information on these particular groups about the social policy or the key issues that are affecting their everyday lives. Now, time series is really important within those surveys because we can ask the same questions over time and we can see how or if attitudes are changing. But it's also important that we think and we include questions on emerging issues. So in our first survey in 1998, we asked questions on BSE, on mad cow disease, which isn't something we would necessarily think about today. In 2020, obviously, we had a lot of focus on COVID. In 2021, we had a focus on poverty and the cost of living crisis. And in 2024, we have questions on climate change. So it's about being reactive and reflecting the issues and the questions that people are asking as we go along. And all of the information, the tables of results, the questionnaires, the technical reports and the data sets for those surveys are available on our website. So I talked about the Kids Life and Time Survey, which we began in 2008. And that was really in response to some of the consultations that were going on at the time about the transfer test and academic selection within Northern Ireland. And we felt, there's lots of words being written there, but where are the voices of the 10 and 11-year-olds who are facing these changes? So we started the survey and 3,500 10 and 11-year-olds took part. This is a page from a comic that we produced, which is the results of the first survey in 2008. And it was really gratifying to see that these children were actually echoing what our idea of what the survey was going to be about. So, for example, one of them said, "I liked it because it gave children a chance to express their opinions and you don't have to answer the questions that you don't want to. Surveys like this let kids voice their opinion, and that's really what we're trying to do within the 3 surveys." So I'm going to finish my section here now off with a graph. It's always nice to throw in a number here. And this is just showing the benefits of asking the same question over time. So we asked respondents, did they believe that relations between Catholic and Protestant communities were better than they were 5 years ago, about the same, or had they got worse? And this is the proportion who thought that the relations between those communities were better than 5 years previously. And you can see that we started these questions in 1989, actually, at the Northern Ireland Social Attitude Survey, which was a forerunner of the Life and Times Survey. And you can see very much that public opinion reflects external events, but we also know that the external events reflect public opinion as well. So we can see that in 1989, just over 1/5 of respondents thought that relations between the communities had got better. This rose quite dramatically when we got to 1994, when we had the ceasefires, dropped again when we had the Holy Cross dispute, and went up and down, reflecting external events. The orange line there shows the responses of the Young Life and Times survey, because we're able to ask the same questions in Young Life and Times as well. Follows exactly the same trend, but actually the responses of the 16-year-olds were slightly more pessimistic than the adults. So, thank you, and I'm going to hand over to Anne-Marie.
Thanks, Paula. I'm glad the old photograph section is over. You might wonder why we've got two different logos here, or two different pop-ups. So I think that we could have lined the room with pop-ups for the past 25 years as the ARK logo has changed, but also institutional logos have changed. So this one's from about 15 years ago, and this is our most current one here. So what you see on your screen now is a publication we had to mark ARK's 20th anniversary. And I think at that time, what we really wanted to do was to highlight how the data and the research that we were doing contributed to policy debate. You know, Paula has mentioned the survey, and since 1998, over 136,000 adults, young people and children have taken part in the surveys. The range of issues that we focus on really reflects the particular circumstances of Northern Ireland. For example, we ask questions on good relations. We've asked those questions since the Life and Times survey started. But the surveys also reflect existing or emerging topics, such as attitudes to gender-based violence, assisted dying. We've got some questions in the survey on assisted dying this year. And of course, over the years when the negotiations were going on about EU withdrawal, the questions and attitudes to Brexit were really, really important. But it's not just what we asked, it's also survey design and methodology and how we asked it. And over the past 25 years, the wording of the question has also reflected changes to concepts and to legislation, for example, around disability, gender and sexual identity. In fact, the Northern Ireland Life and Times survey was the first large-scale public survey in the UK to ask about sexual orientation. And at the time, the Office of National Statistics contacted the NILT team with queries about the wording of the question. And as Paula has said, over this time our data has been used to develop, to monitor and evaluate a range of government strategies, including Together Building a United Community, the Racial Equality Strategy and the new strategic framework on ending violence against women and girls. But I want to focus just for a few minutes on some of our policy work, just by drawing attention to a couple of examples. An example of ARK responding to a gap in robust evidence and not being afraid to shy away from sensitive issues can be seen in terms of our work around the area of reproductive rights. So about 2014, 2015, for a whole variety of reasons, the spotlight was on reproductive rights policy, with an intense debate in Northern Ireland about the need for legislative reform. But there was a really clear evidence gap with regard to public attitudes and also with regard to in-depth research in the experiences and outcomes for women accessing abortion in Northern Ireland illegally and legally in other parts of the United Kingdom. So to address this gap, we developed research funded by the ESRC, which included a module of questions in the Life and Times survey, something I have to admit that we were a little bit nervous about, because undoubtedly this is a sensitive issue. But I think the fact that ARK had a reputation as a trusted source of knowledge enabled that work to be undertaken with less controversy than might have been expected and without any notable backlash. And I think on reflection, in many respects, it helped to take the heat out of a very complex discussion. But the value of having that robust attitudinal data was really pivotal, I think, to legislative change. It was used extensively by the Women and Equalities Committee at Westminster in terms of their inquiry into reproductive rights in Northern Ireland, and by the UN CEDAW Committee. And what you see on the screen here is the top of an ARK feature or ARK blog, which we did on the data at the time, which challenged the prevailing narrative that the voice of the Northern Ireland public was being presented by some politicians and by the churches. So, for example, the Life and Times data showed very clearly that the political views and that some political views and narratives were, in some cases, very, very out of step with those of the public who said they supported those parties. But what the work also highlighted, very interestingly, and this has been shown with regard to other topics, is that surveys can be designed in ways which allow the general public to show that they can take a nuanced perspective and that they themselves can work their way through very complex issues. ARK's facilitation of the subsequent policy and engagement work through our roundtable discussions with healthcare professionals about the future service development in this area is also testament to the trust that people have in ARK as an honest broker. And just to refer to one other piece of work, and that's something which we were very pleased to become involved in, which was the monitoring of the peace process in Northern Ireland. So ARK's work has included that monitoring for the 2018 report and the 2023 report, and a number of ARK colleagues in the room were involved in that work. So what the peace monitoring reports do is to measure the distance travelled over time towards a peaceful and inclusive society or away from it. The report measures progress across 4 domains that you see on the screen there. And people who know the report and the work will know that within the reports there's a very strong focus on what might be called everyday peace. Really, the social policy issues which are so instrumental to quality of life and feelings of social inclusion. And the latest report, I think, revealed the complex picture of events, and it considers them in the context of the very considerable stressors in our society. As noted by the chair of the Community Relations Council, Jacqueline Irwin, in the foreword to the report, the independence of each report has been an important component of the process. So, what has changed about ARK in 25 years? Well, as I said at the start, in many respects, our key mission is the same, but we have responded to change, some voluntary and some not. Now, our Life and Time survey and Young Life and Time survey are completely online, and that was a result of having to do that during COVID. Some issues continue to be important in our surveys: community relations, challenging social policy issues such as poverty, housing, social care. It's really important that we continue to ask questions on these issues. But we've also, of course, ventured into new topics. Currently, we have a focus on the environment, climate change, and the challenges of achieving a just transition. The ARK team has increased in size, and thankfully the demographic has got a bit younger as well in recent years. Our social media use has grown, and there's more emphasis now necessarily on engagement and communication. But I think, reflecting back on that time, there are some constants, some things that have been really important. One has been the importance of building and sustaining personal relationships and the trust which has helped us to do this work with partners in the community and voluntary sector, in the government sector, and with the general public. I think also important is the fact that we've been embedded in a university context, and the value of the collaboration across 2 universities, each with very strong civic values, has been really essential for our work. Looking to the future, undoubtedly some challenges remain. Paul has referred to how funding is a constant challenge. And some challenges are harder, I think, than they were 25 years ago. So in an era of disinformation, misinformation, AI, fake news, the need for trusted and robust evidence is even more important. But I think ARK has shown that good research and data can definitely contribute to evidence-informed policies, although evidence has to fight really hard for its place. And perhaps that's particularly true here in Northern Ireland, the structure of our government, with a mandatory coalition where there can be strong ideological divide, then evidence, I think, becomes really, really important. Amidst concerns about the threat to democracy and the lack of trust in government and reduced voter turnout, we need to invest more, even more, in public engagement and in public participation. And I think we all believe that building trust in young people is integral to future stability. So we in ARK feel that it's really important that the voice of future generations can be heard and can influence policy. And Young Life and Times and Kids Life and Times are important mechanisms for this. But we're also thinking about the need and the potential to expand work with these demographics. Policy making here in this place is still challenging. We don't yet have the stability needed, and to the public, I think we all understand that sometimes progress can look too slow, particularly on finding solutions to really big, challenging policy issues. We maybe don't have the social inclusion needed yet for a healthy, thriving society. But I think we're hopeful that as we look towards a more sustained period of government, that will change. The bottom point there, we have done national and international work, but we need to do more of that. We accept that we can't solve many of today's big challenges without those international collaborations when we're thinking about fundamental social change. So that's our little journey into ARK, if you like. We're really fortunate today to be joined by colleagues from the 2 universities, from government and from the voluntary sector, who've all kindly agreed to speak. And it's my great pleasure to introduce the first of our speakers, who is Professor Archie Clements, Pro-Vice Chancellor for Research and Enterprise at Queen's University Belfast.
Thanks so much, Anne-Marie, for that introduction, and thanks to both of you for that brilliant walk through the history of ARK. Anne-Marie already mentioned the fact that the universities have a very strong civic mission, and so I've been here for just over a year, and I'm still learning about Queen's. I'm still learning about Northern Ireland, and I'm learning about ARK. But there are a few, I guess, facts that I'm coming to learn, and some things that really stand out for me. And one of those things is that civic mission. So Queen's is not a university that wants to be ensconced in South Belfast and being an ivory tower and not connecting with the community. So ARK, I think, really embodies our civic mission, our desire to have impact in improving or bettering the society and the economy of Northern Ireland, but not just in Northern Ireland. ARK also epitomises our drive for exporting or promoting what is great about Northern Ireland and using that to have national and international impact. So whilst ARK provides a lot of evidence and support for social policy development here in Northern Ireland, it also enables us to promote best practice and disseminate our research more broadly. Many of you, or any of you who work in research will know that in the last 20 years there's been a much stronger focus on doing research that has impact. So funders want greater accountability from researchers and universities around the research that we do, and for us to be able to articulate our impact, social and economic. And again, ARK was really ahead of the game in this. It was talking about impact. It was talking about producing research that provided policymakers with tools and evidence 25 years ago. And it's only now that many other areas of research are catching up. So I want to thank ARK for being trendsetters in that space. Another thing that I guess impresses me about ARK, which I think really reflects our current thinking at Queen's, is around partnering. So I've been informed that this is the oldest collaboration or the oldest formal partnership between Ulster University and Queen's, now running for 25 years. And that really, I think, speaks to our current mindset, which is that we don't want to be competing with each other. We want to be working together to improve Northern Ireland and jurisdictions further afield. The competition isn't here, the competition's out there, and we really only can create that impact if we work together. So congratulations to both universities for really putting that at the forefront. Another thing that ARK is really epitomises is this notion of consumer-led or research, co-created together with the key stakeholders that are beneficiaries of the research. If we don't have that that input from our partners, from our community organisations, from our policymakers, from government, then the research that we do won't address their needs in an optimal way. And so I have a whole list of partners that I've been told about that I think really demonstrate this focus on partnering. So, for example, we work with, ARK works with a broad range of voluntary and community organisations, so including organisations such as Volunteer Now, Age NI, Marie Cure, Men's Health Forum, Simon, Youth Action and Dementia NI. And you'll be hearing more about these in another presentation. You've also heard from Anne-Marie about knowledge-driven policy and the incredible need that we have for that in this day and age. And ARK has got a long history, an incredible track record of working in partnership with government and policymakers across all areas of Northern Ireland government, including the Executive Office, Justice, communities and other public bodies, including the Public Prosecution Service, the Police Ombudsman's Office, the Road Safety Partnership and the Commissioner for Victims of Crime. And again, you'll be hearing more about this in Claire's presentation. So, I've talked about the fact that this is a long-standing partnership between two universities and that it's also a long-standing partnership between the universities and other organisations. And really, I think this is critical in terms of breaking down the silos that exist between different sectors and organisations within an area like Northern Ireland. And again, ARK epitomises how we can break down those silos. So, for example, ARK is a trusted facilitator and its policy roundtable events regularly bring together policymakers, practitioners and researchers. Another thing that we're really focused on in research is cross-disciplinary and interdisciplinary approaches. We want to be able to harness the disciplinary strengths of all of the different disciplines that we have in our universities and outside of our universities to address the grand challenges that we face in society and in economies. And again, ARK really epitomises how we can go about doing this cross-disciplinary work. And I can give you some examples of how ARK does that, including through the Dementia Fiction Project, funded by the Arts and Humanities Research Council. So ARK researchers, as part of this project, work with Jane Lugia from Arts, English and Languages at Queen's to explore how the language of contemporary fiction represents the minds of characters with dementia. Integral to this project was collaboration with Dementia NI and Alzheimer's Society, a really nice example of a cross-disciplinary project. Another one's a creative collaboration with Conflict Textiles, a large collection of international textiles, exhibitions and associated events, all of which focus on elements of conflict and human rights abuses. And of course, the key collaborator for ARK, and also I would say for Queen's, is the public, it's our community. And so, in terms of the sheer scale of this, in 2024, over 130,000 people completed one of ARK's attitude surveys. So really another fantastic example of collaboration. So I just want to finish by congratulating Anne-Marie and Paula and the ARK team and all of our partners for 25 years of delivery of knowledge-driven public social policy in Northern Ireland. It's an incredible achievement, something that as a university we're really proud and well done, everybody. So thank you very much.
You can sign up to our newsletter. Thanks very much, Professor Clemens, for the very kind words. We really appreciate that. So I'm really delighted now to introduce Professor Paul Conley, PVC and Executive Dean for the Faculty of Arts, Humanities and Social Sciences at Ulster University.
Many thanks, Anne-Marie and Paula. I'm just delighted to be here today at the celebration of 25 years of ARK. I'm here officially to represent Ulster University to say a few words about the importance of ARK to both of our universities, the contribution it makes regionally and nationally and beyond, and I will say some of those things. However, I'm also here in a personal capacity as a researcher, social science researcher. My background is in education. I focused over many years on children's experiences, children's attitudes, perspectives on a range of things, including education, conflicts, racism, well-being, inequalities. And over these years, and it does probably more than 25 years when I start counting, ARK, and especially Young Life in Times and the Kids Life in Times surveys, have been invaluable to me. So I can speak personally and very passionately about how important ARK has been for me as a researcher. It's also worth noting that I'm now based at Ulster University, but I've spent many a happy year as a researcher in various leadership roles at Queen's University as well. And so I've seen really firsthand not just how valuable ARK is to researchers, how it really supports our work to do real-world, impactful research, but also how it's really helped to draw us together across institutions, across disciplines internally, externally, the two institutions and collaborations across all those different areas. So to me, there's a lot to celebrate in these 25 years. From a university perspective, ARK makes a really invaluable contribution to learning and teaching. Within both of our universities and much further afield, ARK's publications, seminars and other resources are used in teaching in a wide range of subjects, including politics, sociology, education, social policy, health and social care and social work. The evidence it brings to bear on a whole range of contemporary topics and challenges is unsurmounted. But also, ARK has developed a range of survey data sets specifically formatted to teach quantitative methods in universities, and I've absolutely used those over the years in my own courses. Also, just last year, in terms of applying real-world research and making it relevant to our undergraduate students, ARK launched a dissertation award for projects, final year undergraduate projects that have used ARK data and material in their dissertations in social policy at Queen's and at Ulster University. And I think most importantly, and it was mentioned at the beginning around this notion of open access, all of these materials are available freely through the ARK website. They're also deposited in other repositories, including the UK Data Archive, where they're accessed and used internationally. So I've already touched upon, in reference to my own work, my interest in research on and with children and young people, and this has been a particular focus for ARK over the years, and you've seen from the timeline from the initial Northern Ireland Life and Times survey, which in itself needs to be understood for the massive contribution that it's made over the years, capturing and studying public attitudes and how they change over time since 1998, and then building upon a decade previously of social attitudes research in the region. But one of the things that became clear to the ARK team over the years is that what we haven't been doing successfully as a region is listening to children and young people, capturing their views, taking their voice and having that inform policy and practice. Thus, as you've seen, ARK has extended its research to capture the views of 16-year-olds and then 10 and 11-year-olds in the Young Life and Times and the Kids Life and Times surveys, respectively. And at the heart of this has been a participatory approach framed in a children's rights perspective, which has been a key element of these surveys over the years. And now in Northern Ireland, I think we are still the only region where we capture the opinions of children and young people in a systematic way and feed that systematically into policy development and practice. And we've seen, for example, in terms of, and in my own areas, with the Kids Life and Times surveys, we've captured really important information about children's views about shared education, about their well-being and about self-esteem. And at 16 years of age, touched upon a bit earlier, we've been asking young people about their understanding of gender-based violence, feeding into the violence against women and girls strategy that Claire Archibald will be talking about shortly. Overall, ARK was founded in the early days, as you've seen, of the re-establishment of devolved government in Northern Ireland, and established in recognition of the need for high-quality research evidence to inform policy and practice. And you've seen already from the previous presentations about ARK's work, it's never shied away from challenging issues or difficult or controversial subjects. And it's been a real neutral and important voice to facilitate, provoke and stimulate conversations across research and policy areas in Northern Ireland. And through many of its partnerships, and Archie's mentioned these, which are so valuable to both of our universities, partnerships between researchers locally and globally, partnerships with governments, with the voluntary and community sector, connecting people across the region and nationally and internationally, it's been a major contribution to the UK global social science research base and is a major infrastructure for us in the region. It's attracted over £20 million in funding to date, and the fact that ARK is a partnership between the two universities and the long-standing and genuine partnership, I think, is a really important facilitator of its success over the years. I'm sure, in conclusion, I speak on behalf of both our universities in saying that we're extremely proud of the work of ARK has undertaken over the last 25 years, the major impact that it's had in terms of innovative fundamental research, but also its impact on policy and practice. And I dare say it, given my age now, but I really look forward, and I will be around, to see the next 25 years. So congratulations to Paula, to Anne-Marie, and the whole team. I know there's a big, wide team that have been working on this over the years, but congratulations, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. It's been really delightful today to see so many academics that we've worked with over the years, including Paul in ARK. But we've also been really privileged to work with some outstanding partners in the community and voluntary sector and in government who've not just seen us as a kind of tool to do research or for presenting findings, but they've really challenged us in what we're doing, how we're doing it, and how we approach things. And we're really pleased that we've got two representatives here today, one from the NGO sector and one from government, just to give a little bit of insight into how they have used ARK. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Denise Hayward. Denise has worked with ARK, but particularly with Dirk Shabutz, over quite some time, and Denise is Chief Executive of Volunteer Now.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to thank Anne-Marie and Paula for the delightful invitation to come today to speak to you. This is an afternoon for reflections and making us all feel old, because I was working out this morning how long it is since I first phoned Dirk to ask him to help us with a bit of research, and it's over 15 years. Which doesn't make either of us feel younger, which is one of those things. So for those of you who don't know us, Volunteer Now is a regional support organisation for volunteering in Northern Ireland. And so we need to understand the landscape we're working in. We need to understand what changes, what nuances there are in relation to volunteering. So we first used the Young Life and Times survey in 2010, and we looked at young people's experiences of volunteering. And then we repeated that same group of questions in 2018, and it made me think as well, I'm due to give you another phone call to see if we can sort out to do it again. For us, it was really really important in terms of the results. It was the first time we had evidence, really hard evidence, that volunteering impacted on community relations and on young people's experience of mixing and having a wider experience than their normal friendship groups. And we had really clear, robust evidence, and that came through in both of the surveys that we did. Other things that were really lovely for us to see were volunteering is often something that's a very middle class, upper class phenomenon, but what we really saw through the Young Life and Times survey was the impact that it had on the lives of young people from less well-off backgrounds, their really strong sense of altruism and the difference that it made for them. So it really kind of spurred us on to make sure that that opportunity was being put in front of those young people because it made such a big difference. We've also done other things with ARK, and over the last number of years, more recently, we've done some specific research projects. During COVID, we were able to work with Dirk and Martina to do some work on tracking how volunteering was going at that really difficult time, and that was useful for us because other data wasn't available. We've also partnered through ARK with the University of Kent, who've undertaken a research project, both literature review as well as focus group work on youth volunteering policy in Northern Ireland, and that was in 2022. And then last year we worked with ARK again, with Dublin City University and Volunteer Ireland and ourselves to look at inclusive practice in volunteering on the island of Ireland. And that was a really lovely piece of work because it allowed an all-island approach, an all-island partnership, and we had a great report as a result, and we've been able to develop a toolkit and some training for groups that has come directly through that piece of research. So it's actually really useful, and it's not, a report that sits on the shelf, and that's something that we really feel is very important. I suppose in preparation for today, I was reflecting on the partnership. We've found an excellent partnership in ARK. We've been able to ask for advice as we develop proposals. Volunteer now doesn't have any researchers on staff. We're not a big organisation, so we need to look to others to help us with some of that as we even shape applications, and that's been something we've been able to count on. We've always had such a great experience in working with the team, and we've always had really good research reports as a result. We've also really valued the way that the researchers have helped us to interpret the results for the wider sector. For people who are not experienced researchers, they've done things like video briefings, taking part in face-to-face seminars and those kinds of things. It's really helped to bring the data to life and made it really useful for people to use. More recently, in the last 6 months, we've worked with ARK, and particularly again Dirk, to help us with UK Voluntary Sector Studies Network, who were coming to Belfast to support a conference to think about how academics could work more closely with the sector. I was trying to arrange a World Cafe section to try and showcase good examples of practice, and I had it in my head I was going to ask Dirk if he would be my partner, but Martin pipped me to the post. I should have realised that he was partnering with so many other people in the sector that I would have had to have got up much earlier in the day to get that partnership. So for us it has been a really valuable ongoing relationship. I also know that I can rely on the advice in terms of making things affordable. Again, the sector's not awash with money, and so we have been able to kind of work with ARK to try and design things that will get us as good value for money as possible. Many of the things that we're looking at are quite nuanced, and it's lovely not to have to start from the beginning every time you're having a conversation, to know that people understand the kinds of issues that you're dealing with, and that they're really looking forward to trying to work with you to help us as flexibly as they can with things like timescales as well as budget. It's been so positive to have this working relationship, and I know that there are many of my colleagues in the third sector who would say the same. So I just wanted to say congratulations on your 25th anniversary, and I wish you many, many more years of successful partnership working with our sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Denise, and thank you for the kind words. Dirk's ears will be burning it. Well deserved. Our next speaker has worked with ARK over a number of her roles in government, but she's currently Director of the Ending Violence Against Women and Girls strategy in the Executive Office. So we're really, really pleased to welcome Claire Archbold, just to give a little bit of insight into the work with government.
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here this afternoon and to be celebrating 25 years of ARK and 25 years of, your name really does say it all, accessing research knowledge, because no matter what we are trying to do in government, having access to our local universities and having access to you working together and knowing how to make your work accessible to us is really, really important. When ARK started, and I've been in the policy world for as long as you have existed, the world was very different. Who else remembers being a researcher or a policymaker in the 1990s? Do you remember that actually finding the research was a thing that was very, very difficult to do? Because you had to go to the library, you had to go to the stacks, you had to find the citation for the research. You realised there wasn't actually a copy of it in Northern Ireland. You had to go to interlibrary loan, or maybe it was on the internet when the internet happened, but it would be behind a paywall. So actually having a website like ARK, having an archive which was readily accessible at that time was a new thing and was very important. Now, at that time, that was innovation. Now we expect that as standard. So the other part of ARK's mission of actually bringing the research to policymakers, to the community and voluntary sector, to people who use it, doing the research in a trusted way has become even more important. And we've heard so much about the range of things that you do and about the range of ways that those become accessible to not just to people, not just to people like me who get what I call that Radio Times feeling whenever there's a new NILT or YILT report coming out. And again, this shows my age, the Christmas Radio Times. The Christmas Radio Times comes out and you get this kind of great. Well, I get a little bit like that when the latest NILT or YILT survey comes out, because you think, what are they going to be telling us now? What new thing are we going to learn? And I think that is really important. But one of the most important things about it, I think, is that ARK doesn't have a policy position. Your policy position is that it is good to find out what people think and to reflect that like a clear lens to those of us who need to know. So thank you for that. It's that stance which was one of the things that led me when I was in my current role as the Director of the Ending Violence Against Women and Girls programme here in Northern Ireland, to think about you as a research partner. We have when we co-designed our strategic framework, we weren't just asking, how do we tackle violence against women and girls? What we've been asked by the executive to do was to figure out how do you end violence against women and girls. And that means not just all of the really good work. I want to pay tribute to all of the really good work that goes on in our criminal justice system or that goes on in helping victims and survivors of violence against women and girls. But to end it, we need to get right down into culture, into attitudes, into behaviours. How on earth do you measure that? So we, of course, turned to our partners in NISRA, who said, well, we've got to involve ARK in this. I said, well, of course we do. So particularly, how do we find out what young people think? Now, we knew that ARK had a history of being able to ask really difficult questions of young people in a very safe way and in a way that got really good information to the policymakers. I know that your groundbreaking study asking in YILT about self-injury and suicidal ideation, and I know how much heart-searching you did before you thought, should we even ask these questions of vulnerable teenagers? And of course, what you found was that vulnerable teenagers were absolutely up for that conversation. They had views, they wanted to be heard, and that approach of wanting young people's voices and wanting children's voices to be in policy debates, especially where it affects them, is something which is at the core of Yilt and Kilt. So you had done that important piece about self-injury. You also contributed to the key Bernardo's study on sexual grooming and exploitation of young people. And that's why we were confident when we came to you to say, what questions can we ask, and what information, how do we do this safely? You helped us to design a great set of questions, which told us, and I'd like to focus on the Yilt questions, because what we heard was 75% of the girls who answered that survey, aged 16, had already experienced sexual harassment. 1 in 2 of them had received an unwanted intimate image. 1 in 5 of the young men who answered that section saw no problem with online or in-person sexualised harassment of women and girls. What we heard shaped what we have done. When we heard that not all of the young people, and I've forgotten the exact statistic, but we asked them, would you be confident to intervene if one of your friends was behaving poorly towards a woman or girl, or if you saw an incident happening? And no, they weren't confident that they would know how to intervene. We asked them if they knew what a coercively controlling relationship was. What percentage do you think said they did? 16%. How are the other 84% going to realise if they're in a relationship which is unhealthy? So that's why we are using that data to shape the interventions that we're making. Has anybody seen the Power to Change campaign? Yes, a few nods around the room. Do look out for it. It's a campaign which is about challenging young men about some of their behaviours, but also challenging young men to be active bystanders and to call out their friends' behaviour and to call their friends into being allies in ending violence against women and girls. And our next campaign, which again is being designed in conjunction with Susan Lagdon, who I know is a good friend of ARK, based on her TED talk on coercive control, is going to be aimed at women and girls. And it's going to be at not just recognising what coercive control is, but recognising what it might look like. What are the red flags in your own life? And we are doing that because of what we heard people, and in particular young people, saying to us. We have not yet had opportunity to engage with the Kids Life and Times survey, but I love the fact that it exists, and I love what we learn from it. Dirk Schuboltz was telling me recently about the Kids Life and Times survey, and the fact that you're now able to use much more free text than to get deeper, richer answers in your surveys. And one child was asked last year, apparently asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And this girl said, I want to be an actress, doctor, teacher, dermatologist, singer, pop star, musician, gamer, YouTuber, social media, dentist, nurse, principal, shopkeeper, manager. And apart from anything else, what I love about that is that it's a one-answer snapshot of life in Northern Ireland now. And I also love the fact that a girl of 10 or 11 sees no reason why she cannot be any of those things. So, what of the future? Now, we're living at a time when the research world is being revolutionised by technology, with threats, with challenges, but also with great opportunities. And I understand that ever alert in the pursuit of new forms of knowledge, the ARK team had recently asked the AI if it could tell them the value of ARK. And this is what the AI said, so it got a bit confused. And it said, the ARK website doesn't have a market value like a commercial entity or a cryptocurrency. However, if you're asking about the ARK cryptocurrency, its current market value is apparently 51 cents per ARK token. Other cryptocurrencies are available. Now, to be fair, the AI then did get its act together and talk about ARK's social value. And that's where I would like to end this afternoon, in celebrating the social value of the work that you do. How many people have expressed their views through ARK's research? I understand that the tally is 33,000 adults, 28,000 16-year-olds and 75,000 10-year-olds through the NILT, YILT and KILT surveys. 169 research updates, 33 policy briefs, 144 recorded research seminars, all available to anyone free of charge, all influencing policy, all informing debate, and all helping to tell future generations the story of who we are now. So I'd like to thank all of the researchers and everyone else in this room who makes the work of ARK possible for what you do. And I hope that you will still be going strong in another 25 years, still telling our story. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much to our speakers today. It has just been so lovely. I mean, we do have very big heads now, but as I say, it's just so lovely to hear how important the work has been. We hope that it's going to be important, but it's really great to hear from other people about how they use the data, how they use the information, how the relationships as well that they have with the ARK team. As I say, the ARK team is not just myself or Anne-Marie, it is a wide range of people across this room and outside this room as well, and it couldn't happen without the whole team. And I think for somebody who's been involved with ARK for 25 years, it's that bonding within the team has been so important. I couldn't even begin to tell you about how many bars of chocolate and cakes have been consumed over the last 25 years, and it is actually chocolate that binds the ARK team together. But anyway, we do have a monthly newsletter if anybody would like to sign up for it. Hopefully you already get it, but if you want to use that QR code. And Claire, here's your Radio Times moment. Yo! This is just the list, and you will have the programme on your table here, which just some of the events that we have coming up in this celebratory anniversary year. So we've been working with Conflict Textiles on an anniversary exhibition of ARK throughout the years that's available in the Macleay Library at Queen's, but also in the Ulster University Library as well. We have workshops, we have the launch of the NILT data coming up in May, we have the Young Life and Times and Kids Life and Times launch coming up later, and a wide variety of seminars and roundtables and other events coming up. So you've got that schedule on your table. All information and further details as they come along will be available on the ARK website, and if you sign up for the newsletter, then you'll have them there. So it just remains for me to say thank you very much to everybody for coming today. I hope you found it useful, engaging, and perhaps encourage you to get in touch and engage with ARK's resources. I just want to say a huge thank you to our speakers, to Archie, to Paul, to Denise and to Claire. To the team at the City Hall for making this such a wonderful, beautiful venue to start off the celebrations in great style, and for helping the event go very smoothly. And of course I need to mention Cohen, Darley and Alex for all their help in terms of the registration and guiding you around the room. I suppose it doesn't happen without the funders, and we're really, really, we can't say thank you enough for the funding that we've received through the years, and the support of the two universities, because obviously we are very much embedded within Queen's and Ulster, and that connection is really, really important. And of course we have to say thank you to the public of Northern Ireland for taking part in our research. Thank you very much for coming, and here's to the next 25 years. Thank you.